Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Cherries with Army YouTube channel. I'm Kirk. It's 45 minutes till kickoff, and this is Lineups Live. AFC Bournemouth take to the pitch at 6 p.m. to take on Millwall in their latest championship match, and Jonathan Woodgate picked his starting 11 to try and get the 3 points and keep us in those playoff places and hopefully guarantee a playoff place by the end of the game. I have John with me. How you doing, John?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks, Kirk. Thanks again for having me on, Kirk.
And for those that are able to join us at this early kickoff, thank you. And you can take part, as always, interactively in the chat. Let us know your thoughts throughout the next 20 to 25 minutes, and we'll show as many messages as we can on the screen. Also, give this video a like if you're currently watching on YouTube. We'll really appreciate that. And if you're not a subscriber already, please subscribe to help the channel. Now, John, before we get into the lineups and this match, it's been a busy few days for football, hasn't it? And let's briefly just have a discussion. Do you know what? This game that we love, the best sport in the world ever, has been challenged over the last couple of days, and fans and other parts of the world have sort of come together, and government as well, to sort of bring it down. The heart's been tried to be ripped out of the game, and football's tried to play a part on a few occasions, hasn't it, John? And it's tried to change the way that football is. But this was an all-time low, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think really, the authorities on this are the kind of monologues that you've heard from Gary Neville passionately talking about, the way that football is. And Jonathan Woodgate, I think, was very, very forceful, talking about, the heart being ripped out of Bournemouth and of football if this was to continue. And whatever power play that these 12 big clubs thought that they could pull clearly isn't going to work. And I do wonder whether they were trying to force through some sort of bargaining chip to sort of say to UEFA, if you don't give us what you want, we could easily go and form another league. But the kind of backlash that's happened, maybe UEFA don't have to be quite so worried about what they might do, because I don't think there'll be a lot of people that'll be watching those games every other week or whenever it would happen. And it's just not the same. The whole, one of the biggest things about football and what we love so much about the FA Cup is the underdog stories. And if you've got 12 clubs all sharing €3 billion or dollars or whatever it was that was going to be pumped into it, there's no underdogs, there's no interest, there's no intrigue, there's no competition. It's just not right. It's not football. And thankfully, for now, it'll stay football.
Talking about a Super League, this country has two massively interesting and fantastic football leagues, and that is the Premier League, when it's got the 20 teams in it, and obviously the Championship, which I enjoyed the first time round when Bournemouth were in it, and I'm enjoying it this season as well. And the Championship, there was more fixtures yesterday, and let's take a look at some of those scores from last night. And John, some of those results went for us again. I say for us, Watford beat Norwich, a second home loss for Norwich in a row. But Brentford drew against Cardiff, and Brentford in April doesn't seem to be a match made in heaven.
No, that's 5 draws out of the last 6 out of the last 7, something like that. It's quite incredible the kind of sort of malaise they've seemed to settle into at this point of the season. It is I think internally, sort of within the fans, it's a bit of a worry that this is third season in a row they just can't seem to pull that actual final steps to promotion out of the bag. I'm a little bit disappointed, but also kind of relieved, I think, with Watford beating Norwich, because I do think that automatic promotion spot was a realistic target, provided obviously Watford needed to screw up enough. They could only get at most 4 points, and they've already got 3, so that's gone. So we can just focus on the playoffs. And another interesting one for me is Derby. This isn't our league review show, but they are in a very bad position now. With Rotherham only needs to pick up 3 points, and they'll go above them. So it's that's an interesting one at the bottom of the table. And then Swansea again just can't seem to perform consistently this late in the season. And were it not for them picking up a win in their previous 4 points out of the last 2, they could really have been looking to fall below Barnsley, but. They should be safely 4th or 5th at this point.
Swansea deceiving the league again. I've been saying this a few weeks, but they can't seem to put enough free points together in a row. But hey ho, what we're going to do then is get into the lineups. And before we do that, I'm going to ask you again, the people that are currently watching, what minute do you think the first goal will come in this game? So it doesn't matter what team will score, but the first minute that the first goal will come in this game. Let us know in the chat what you think, and we're going to get stuck into the lineups, and we always do start with the opposition. And this would be Gary Rowett's Millwall team, and the team is Bukowski in goal, Cooper, Wallace, Sahor, Malone, Pearce, Kieftenbeld, Woods, McNamara, Mitchell, and Evans. You may be able to see the subs bench as well. But John, Millwall, a team that's kept 17 clean sheets, shall I say, but in those clean sheets, they've had 8 0-0s, but they have a goal difference of 1. In the preview show, we talked about them, not having a lot of goal scorers. And are they going to be tough to break down this evening?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 17 clean sheets is a hell of a stat, really, for a team that's, on the higher ends of mid-table. It's very impressive. Show their defensive ability, but out of all the league games so far this season, it's only 10 of them have been settled by a bigger difference than 1 goal. So there's generally very little in games that Millwall are involved in. I'll be interested again to see sort of how they set up, because the funny thing, going back over Millwall's sort of lineups, is they do change formations between a back 3 and a back 4. Certainly quite a lot over the season. And it is, when you talk about players up front that's going to put the ball in the back of the net, it is Jed Wallace that's always the man that really you've got to keep an eye on. I mean, Zohor could easily turn up and do something, but it is Wallace that could, pull anything out of the bag from set pieces as well. So you don't want to be giving any stupid fouls away at the edge of the area today.
That's right. And Gary Rowett, I think they finished 8th last season, 9th this season. They looked like they were going to try and make a little bit of a push for the playoffs, but they're out of sight now. What are they playing for, John?
Well, pride at this point, I suppose. Bournemouth have not done brilliantly against a bunch of the teams further down the table so far this season. You've only got to look at our record against Sheffield Wednesday, but there's no reason why Millwall won't go out and try to win this one. They've already taken a point of us, and if they can look at whether we go up through the playoffs or not, the more points you take off the higher teams up in the league, the better it is for the fans, the more impressive it feels. And every fan will obviously want to watch the game and get 3 points regardless of who they play against.
It was interesting. I think Sky Championship Twitter tweeted that Smith has an influence when he plays against Bournemouth. He's got a broken foot, so I don't quite know how he's going to do that, but they put a tweet out probably not putting their homework in. So let's see then what minute you think the first goal will come in. Daniel, how you doing? You got the 23rd minute, 7th. I'll agree with that one. That's my favourite number. We'll always go for it. 7th minute, 8th, 12th, 14th, 17th, 16th, 55. So that could be an edgy first half. And, the big first goal, if it does come that late, 12th. And we got a 10 as well. And we got a Scott Malone goal. an own goal on 13 minutes to give Bournemouth the lead. Yeah, what's your thoughts on maybe the first goal in the game? What minute?
I was actually sort of along the lines of Fat Richie there. I'm thinking actually a second half. I reckon it'll be 0-0 going into half time, because I think Millwall will make it very hard for us. Although their home form isn't as good as their away form, I believe. But I'm thinking probably second half. So 51st minute, I'll go with. I think an early goal in the second half.
And I'm looking at this game thinking that if we score the first goal in this game, it's wrapped up. We'll win this football match. But back on 12th of January, we scored the first goal in that game and we didn't wrap it up. And that would start our horrendous form that went through to January and obviously cost Jason Tyndall his job.
Exactly. One goal, isn't really enough to help you comfortably see out games anymore at all against any team in this division. So, one will be great. But I do feel as though Woodgate isn't necessarily doing what we all felt he was doing towards the start of his reign, which is grab a goal and then just try and defensively see out the rest of the time, put on 4 fullbacks and make sure that we don't get overloaded. But more recently, he's kept Danjuma on for longer than people probably would have expected him to. He's maybe sort of kept us to a relatively attacking shape going long into a game, even if there is only one goal in it. So I think if we get the first goal, I reckon we'll get with a decent amount of time left to go. I reckon we could get 2 or 3.
Okay, it's time for Jonathan Woodgate's starting 11. It's been picked. This is your AFC Bournemouth team for today's game. In goal, Asmir Begovic. Captain, Steve Cook. Lloyd Kelly. David Brooks. Jeff Lerma. Dom Solanke. Arno Danjuma. Jack Stacey comes in for Adam Smith. Cameron Carter-Vickers. Ben Pearson and Philip Billing. On the bench, Mark Travers, Adam Smith, Chris Mepham, Diego Rico, Jack Wilshere, Raquel May, Jaden Anthony, Stanislas and Sam Surridge. So the obvious, John, is just the one change. On the preview show, I predicted there might be more than that with one eye on Brentford, but he's gone with keeping most of that team together like he spoke about for a few weeks now and just brought Jack Stacey in.
Yeah, and I do think your theory on maybe rotating a little bit did make sense. I mean, certainly towards the start of the Norwich game, we didn't get out of the blocks quickly enough at all in that game, and obviously, from the 20th minute onwards, it was a different scenario. But against Brentford, we are going to need to definitely be up for that game. They're still a good side, even with all their draws. Today, I'm still pleased though with the lineup. I mean, it's been working very well as per 6 wins in a row. So there's really not really any need to change much at all. I like Stacey coming back in because I just like Stacey as a fullback. I think unfortunately since his sort of more significant injury earlier in the season, he has been a bit more susceptible defensively. But his attacking output and just his pace on the wing is a real weapon. And I would like, he's obviously more the long-term player as opposed to Adam Smith, purely in terms of age. And also Smith is out of contract at the end of this season, and we'll see whether he commits any further. So that one change is fine. I expect us to play exactly the same as we have for the last few games and very much take the game to Millwall with it.
Steve Cook's having a good week. 350 appearances up for a club legend. Had his 30th birthday as well. Does he get a goal tonight, John? He hasn't got a goal yet all this season.
Well, if you were going to do it against any team, I think Millwall's probably one of the hardest teams to do it against, considering their defensive solitude and also just how many big, strong players they've got at set pieces to help defend the ball into the box. So, I mean, you never know. It's like Steve Cook. Steve Cook doesn't necessarily need to pull a header out of the bag. He's put what was it? Bicycle kick against Ipswich, scissor kick against Southampton, backheel flick against Aston Villa. If he can do anything in the opposition box, he wants to. So, you never know. He could do it today. Is he the last person? Ben Pearson would be the other one in this sheet that hasn't scored, but obviously he's had far fewer games. But I suppose he's the last one really out of the mainstays that hasn't scored this season.
And Ben Pearson had a goal snatched off him in the changing rooms, but we won't talk about that. Arno Danjuma, a player in unbelievable form. Philip Billing, not as influential at Norwich, but has obviously been playing very well. Probably been player of the month or up there as well with Arno Danjuma. Now, David Brooks, a player trying to play his way into form, John, but Stanislas is fit now and he's going to be knocking on the door. I mean, one poor performance from David Brooks and Stanislas will want that place back.
Yeah, without a doubt. I was actually thinking earlier on. It's like we've still got a lot of hopes on David Brooks, obviously because of how well he performed for basically one season. And I'm just thinking, like, why isn't he necessarily sort of coming into the forefront now in the same way that he did in that season? And you do have to look at the sort of relationship that he built up with that very solid attacking front four of that season. You had Wilson, King, Fraser and Brooks all interchanged, all knew each other's game. And of course he doesn't have that now with Solanke, maybe a little bit too selfish at times on the ball, doesn't play it quickly enough. Philip Billing, I think is good, but I think he links up better with Solanke. And Danjuma is quite a lot more selfish on the ball than Fraser was, I think. So, he doesn't really have the partnerships that he had going those 2 seasons ago when he was on fire. So he's great enough to do things individually, but I think people are expecting him to do something like Danjuma, which he's just not going to do. He's not the same player, but he could definitely do a lot more. He's got so much more talent in him. He's got so much more that he's capable of doing, and he can take it past a man. He's just not attempting it enough. I would just, I'd like to see someone sort of Woodgate sort of tell him to be more confident, tell him to try more, tell him to be more, back to himself. But he seems to be playing within himself a bit too much at the moment, and that's what everyone is really seeing. So there's something needs to happen for him to really get back to his best, because at the moment we're just not seeing it.
A final word as well on Jack Wilshere, another game where Ben Pearson starts ahead of Jack Wilshere and away from home. But I'm a big fan of Ben Pearson, and actually his stats are outstanding when he generally starts or comes off the bench. We've only lost once. But Jack Wilshere, a player that I'm sure is eager to get on that pitch and influence and try and help get us promoted. I'm sure he's got something to say in this final push. But yeah, I mean, he generally doesn't start away from home.
Yeah, it seems to be just the thing where it's Pearson or Wilshere, and it's Pearson away and it's Wilshere at home. I'm not sure whether that was something that was prearranged maybe between the players and Woodgate. I'm a little bit surprised. Like, it's not as though Jefferson Lerma isn't, the mainstay for a reason, but I may be a little bit surprised that Wilshere hasn't come in for Lerma today, because Lerma against Norwich did seem a bit off it. And he was taken off at half time to obviously allow Surridge to come on and have an impact. But Lerma's been playing a lot of games this season. It's not like he can't, and he obviously didn't go to Colombia on the most recent international break because, those games weren't played. But I just thought maybe, it's not as though we necessarily need both of those players to provide like a wall today. We're certainly expecting to dominate the ball, and you would maybe want Wilshere to be able to try and unlock something. So that's something I'm a little bit surprised at, as Lerma probably does need a bit of a rest, I would say, as well. But, maybe it's just the organised thing, and I would be very surprised if Wilshere doesn't start against Brentford at home on the weekend.
We're going to refresh ourselves on the other fixtures in the Championship to complete game week 43 in just a moment, and we'll also have a look at that table as well. But this is your opportunity to get your score predictions in the chat now before kickoff. What do you think the score will be in about half an hour's time? Okay, or when we kick off, what do you think the score will be? Okay, so put that in the chat right now and we'll show them on the screen in just a minute. And let's take a look at the other fixtures playing tonight to complete the week. We've also got, we'll just move that over there, Millwall versus AFC Bournemouth, as we know, Rotherham versus Middlesbrough, Stoke versus Coventry, Wycombe versus Bristol City, Birmingham at home to Nottingham Forest, Huddersfield versus Barnsley, and Luton versus Reading. Now, two teams that we need to keep an eye on that are behind us at the moment is Barnsley away at Huddersfield and Reading away at Luton. John, potentially if we win tonight and Luton do us a favour, we're guaranteed a playoff spot.
Yeah, and Luton obviously should be feeling very pleased with themselves after winning in their local, in their derby, in the most recent game week, beating Watford. And from the sounds of things, it was a thoroughly deserved win and should have been much a bigger result than what actually was. So if they can take that form in and just do Reading for us, then that would be wonderful. And then Barnsley, as you say, at this point, I don't think Barnsley are a team that really we're giving too much attention on in terms of like whether they're going to overtake us at this point. But just to sort of see sort of what the marker is as to who gets sixth, I suppose is the interesting one. And then there's obviously a bunch of games down at the bottom down further towards the bottom of the league with Wycombe, Rotherham, and Coventry all playing. And it's been a shame for me looking at Wycombe as well, just not being able to actually finalise some of these wins, going ahead in the most recent 2 game weeks and drawing. It's a shame they were going out with a lot of fight, but unfortunately they are going out.
Just to get your thoughts on this then, with 4 games to go and it'll be 3 after this evening, where do you expect Bournemouth to finish in those places?
Well, at the minute, 3rd. I don't really see any reason why we wouldn't. I mean, you look at Brentford's form, there's another draw tacked on there. So they, as much as they haven't been losing, draws don't really get you promoted at this point. So, they're sort of not in the best form at the moment. Swansea, I don't know, I'm not sure how they even got some of those wins, really. They've really been very off it for the last couple of months. And then Barnsley seem to be tailing off as well. And then Reading, if they were to get in, they haven't been. They're about 11th since. If you ignore their first 8 games, they're about 11th in the table. So their form hasn't continued over the season. So with 6, hopefully 7 wins in a row, with a form team in the division, and we're definitely someone that no one wants to play. Out of whoever goes up, whoever gets into those promotion places does not want to play us, and that's a great feeling to have as a fan.
Make sure you hit that like button. This is your opportunity to do that right now, and subscribe if you haven't already. How are you feeling about the game? Confident? And what do you think the score will be? So let's get Chris on the screen. How you doing, Chris? 3-0 to Bournemouth with Danjuma. Steve Cook, first goal of the season. And Dom. Mark, how you doing? 2-1 to the Cherries. Cameron, 2-0. Mark, 2-1. Thanks for joining us. Daniel in the USA, how you doing? 1-0 to Bournemouth. We've got a 2-1, another 2-1 as well. Cameron's back as well. Was that 2-0? Just a second time for inputting that. Sammy, you've got a 2-0, staying positive. Steve, how you doing? 2-1. 2-0 for the Cherries. How you doing, Carol? We've got third for position for Mark. He reckons we'll finish third. And another 2-1 for AFC Bournemouth. Right, John, I know you always like to see good performances. We know ultimately we need to just get the job done and pick up those 3 points. But what are you hoping for when that whistle goes? And what's your score prediction?
Well, I'm hoping we just start strong this time around. Like I said, didn't start brilliantly against Norwich, but there've been a lot of. We went through a long period, obviously, with one of your stats with regards to us not getting early goals, and over the last sort of month, we've put that to bed pretty much with quite a few earlier goals in games. Obviously, I doubt we'll get one as quickly as 23 seconds or whatever it was this time round, but you never know. It's just a fast start, just to really put Millwall on the back foot, really put some authority stamp our authority on the game. And I'm expecting that we'll come out 2-0 winners. That's my hope. And I'm not copying Sammy again. I was thinking that before I saw her put up her result, but yeah, I'm hoping 2-0 and a strong performance, good solid clean sheet, take us into probably the biggest game of the last 3 against Brentford.
I'm going for a 2-1. We've scored in the last 13 consecutive matches. I do think Millwall will get a goal, even though they haven't scored lots of goals this season. But I do think we'll win the football match 2-1. Danjuma with his magic, and maybe Billing to get back on the score sheet as well. Thank you to everyone who's joined us for this Lineups Live. Please make sure you hit that like button. Me and John will be doing a match review straight after the game, and it will be released about an hour after the full-time whistle. So straight after the back of the net free-for-all, you should be able to pick up the review. So check that out, give us a like, and also let us know your comments. As I said, Bournemouth haven't been doing that great in the capital this season against other teams, but maybe tonight we can win in London and we can cement a place in the playoffs, as long as results go our way as well. Enjoy the game, have a nice drink, and we'll see you on the next video. Up the Cherries.